Today on the Skid Factory, we're injecting some late model GM goodness into this 65 Nova. This 65 Nova SS belongs to a mate of ours, Cam, who's recently immigrated from Mexico after a bit of trouble with the law over there. He bought this with him. It's a beautiful car. It's in really good nick for its age. It's probably had a few resprays over the years, but hey, what can you do for a 65 model? Looks great. The interior is beautiful. It's had a good suspension upgrade and brakes, and Cam's dropped it off here so we can fit some horrible throttle body injection system to his old 283. What he doesn't know is that we're not going to do that, because that injection system can go in the bin, and we're going to use a Haltech instead, and we might just throw the 283 in the bin as well, because we've got a hold of a late model aluminium GM small block that we're going to throw in it. The good thing about it is we're not going to make it look like a late model aluminium small block. We're going to dress up the engine and set it all up so it looks exactly like the engine that's in it, which looks pretty good. It's a nice old school thing, looks really simple. So let's have a look. Just have to work out how to open the bonnet. So there she is. 283 cubic inches of turbo firepower. It's a sweet little engine, but it doesn't go. It's only got 195 horsepower according to the sticker, and it probably has about half that now because it's ancient. Looks great though, real nice old school Chevy orange with the Chevrolet on the covers and everything. So what we're going to do is make the new engine look exactly like that. Take a few bolts here and there. And we're also going to get rid of all the wiring and hide it. We've got our buddy Az from Dunning-Kruger Motorsport here. He's going to rewire the car with partly with a sort of replacement wiring kit, which I'm sure will fit perfectly, no problem at all. And just with some custom wiring as well. Wire up the Haltech. All the EFI stuff's going to be hidden away, so it won't look like an EFI engine. So we'll go through that and show you how to do it, and hopefully we'll end up with something that looks just like this, but is much better. The car's already got full suspension upgrade, subframe connectors, boosted brakes, big wheel woods. So he's done a lot of work on it. He's chipped away at all the stuff that people don't bother doing because they just put a big engine in it first, and he decided he didn't want to put a big engine in it and just put EFI on this old 283, which would make no difference really. And the EFI setup you've got is junk, some cheap throttle body sort of carburetor replacement thing. So we've drop kicked that over into the neighbour's house and upgraded some stuff. So hopefully Cam doesn't get too cranky when he finds out. He's a bit of a badass, so hopefully we're all alive after the end of this. We better do a good job, or it might be trouble. In true American build fashion, we've only got 4 days to complete this major job. Cam gets out of remand in 4 days' time, so he's going to want to pick his car back up. So I've got a couple of mates in to help me. I've got Ian from LSX Tuner magazine, and I've got Az from Dunning-Kruger Motorsport in Germany. Az only speaks a bit of English, so don't ask him too many questions. Ian never shuts up, so ask away.
Az from Dunning-Kruger Motorsport has already started on wiring the car. The kit consists of a full wiring loom, so the whole car has to be disassembled and stripped. The new wiring loom isn't a plug-and-play item. It still requires all the wires to be cut to the correct lengths and connectors crimped on the ends. All of the old wiring is thrown in the bin, and the new wiring loom is routed throughout the car. The wires are all labelled by colour, which correspond to the instructions, so it's a pretty simple task for someone like Az. He is also relocating the battery into the boot so that there is less clutter in the engine bay.
This is our GM aluminium small block that we've got, generation 3, so a bit newer than what's in the old Nova. We just got this off Gumtree. Cam got it. It's just an old standard engine. It's all had the heads off and stuff, so we didn't see it running, but it looks pretty good. It's had a few oil changes, which is probably more than some. So we're going to just give it a bit of a freshen up with head service, which I've had done already. We put the new valve springs in the head, took a bit off the heads to up the compression a little bit. We got the VCM cam and associated valve gear and stuff to go in it. So it'll liven her up a little bit. They're not the most powerful thing in the world as standard. So it'll sound pretty good with the big cam in it and a little bit more compression and some pipes. So now we just got to put it all back together and hope for the best. I've done a little bit with Gen 3 small block Chevs over the years, but nothing out of the ordinary. So that's why I've got Ian here to help me out. He knows what he's talking about. Tell us about that cam.
Well, this is going to be the new cam we're putting in Cam's Nova. So standard cam's good for a factory motor, but with the old school style intake on it, we needed more lift and duration. Basically that stock cam's like a nice smooth 120 LSA. This is a 110, so it'll have a good amount of chop. For the cam nerds out there, this is a 232, 234, 110, which has, it'll sound pretty tough at idle. It basically comes in a full kit from VCM. They sized this cam for us. They sent us the right push rods to suit, because you've got to make sure that your lifters and your push rods and all the valve train and everything suits how big your cam is. And we talked to them about what torque converter Cam's got. We talked to them about the pistons. We didn't want to have to fly cut the pistons or put new pistons in. So this is going to be the hot sauce.
This is just your old early model Gen 3 pulley, 3-bolt. The thrust for the cam is just taken care of by oil and a machine surface. This is an LS2 type single row. So you can see it's got the cam sensor. Half moon is actually on the front of the engine. I don't know why they've changed from back to front. I think it may have had something to do with them using like variable cam timing type thing, or displacement on demand or something on some of the truck engines. So they changed the cam timing to be on the pulley so that they could get accurate readings. But they've also added this Torrington thrust plate rather than relying on it just bashing against the cam retainer plate with some oil in between. So it's a bit fancier. It's a whole bunch of random upgrades that GM did with the engine over the years. Yeah, pretty mind-blowing how many changes there were to different engines. That's what Ian's here for. If I don't know what I'm talking about, I ask him. We've got our chain and everything on. That's the oil pump drive. So the oil pump then goes over the top of that and is driven straight off the crankshaft. So then the oil's pulled straight into the pump, fed into the gallery here, where it goes down the block into the oil filter and back out again. And then it comes back up into this main gallery. And if you don't put this Welsh plug in, you don't get any oil pressure. Shout out to Dave. You can choose to replace the oil pump on these things if you want. I'm just checking it out, making sure it's not damaged in any way, because it's up to the job if it's in good condition. So it looks fine. So we'll just pack a bit of VAS in there and throw it back together and hit limiter.
Before we can hit limiter like a true Gen 3 small block owner, the engine needs to be reassembled. After the oil pump is fitted, it's on to installing the new lifters which have been soaked in engine oil as requested by the manufacturer. The engine is flipped over so the windage tray, oil pickup and sump can be installed.
When we were planning this job, we got a hold of this sump from a H3 Hummer, because every Chevy from the 60s has a rear sump, or so we thought. This one is the only one that doesn't. So yes, I've never seen an old Chevy with a sump in the front, but yeah, apparently there is one, and that's it. So it turns out that the sump that we need is actually the one that came on the engine, because it's out of a Commodore, or a GTO as the Americans would call them. So it's a front sump. So you can see the rear, that's your normal setup. There's dozens of different variations of these, but this one's a pretty common one to use on a muscle car. This one's, yeah, wacky as, got the oil filter at the front, got pipes inside the sump to transfer the oil, because the oil filter is normally here. So yeah, it turns out we had the right one all along, so we'll throw that one on and hopefully it'll all fit properly. Let's do this. A little trick with these Gen 3 small blocks is when you got this front cover off doing a cam, you need to tighten up these sump bolts first. Otherwise, there's a little bit of float in the cover, and you can do it up so it's got a reasonable gap. And when you tighten these down, it snaps the corner of the sump off. The reason I know that is because I've had heaps of people bring me sumps with a snapped off corner and get me to weld them back on. And yeah, it's a thing. It happens a bit. So you've been warned. So these ones aren't actually tight yet, so we've left them all loose but in position until we've tightened the sump up. Then we can just go through and tighten these ones up. This is heavy. What's in here?
Right, Jason from Tuff Mounts down in Adelaide. He has sent a care package. So those guys are basically, they're the kings of putting different engines in different cars that never came with them. So they make mounts, they make coil relocation kits, they make cool stuff like if you don't want your late model Generation 3 small block Chevy engine to look like a standard late model small block Chevy engine, they make these adapters.
That tapper cover is going to leak, bro. Big time. Just giving you a heads up.
It's okay. There should be gaskets in here. We also have...
You can get the jokes. No one ever gets my goddamn jokes.
It's It's a Chevy small block, they all leak.
No, look, you can see through it, bro. That's why it's going to leak. God, I have to spell shit out.
I'm obviously not on your level of dad joke.
No, you're not. So these adapter plates bolt onto the where the valve cover would go on the Generation 3 small block, and it allows us to fit the earlier model small block valve cover, so it looks like an old school engine. The Generation 3's got like coils and all sorts of junk all over it that it obviously needs, but they're ugly, so we're going to relocate that and or replace.
That's why you need... Jason and the guys also make these coil relocation brackets. So if you want to run the old school rocker covers, you can then relocate your coils, just bolt them anywhere, under the dashboard, completely out of the engine bay, on the roof, maybe on your wheels, probably not on your wheels, don't do that. We've also got engine mounts.
These are good because the ones that are on that engine that's in the car are completely and utterly buggered, and the engine looks like it's about to fall out underneath the car. So these are Tuff mounts. So they're an unbreakable mount basically. Get these for many different applications. Have a look on the Tuff Mounts or Muscle Car Garage site if you want to see them. Heaps of different just general replacement applications, like if you've got an old, like a Falcon or a Commodore or something like that, that's got some stupid hydraulic engine mount on it that breaks, they'll make a solid or more solid version like that for it.
They even do stuff for Pontiacs, and no one does stuff for Pontiacs.
What? What's a Pontiac?
It's this old crappy car that's not relevant anymore. These will be the, so we'll actually, to bolt the LS1 into the Nova where the Chevy small block was.
It is a Chevy small block.
Oh, that's right, we changed engineers. To bolt the Gen 3 small block Chevy where the Gen 1 small block Chevy was, we use these plates in conjunction with those mounts, and it should all work on the factory cross members, bolt up like new. Bolt-on parts, bro.
Sweet. I love bolt-ons.
The cylinder heads have been returned from the machinist after being decked and cleaned. They were also installed with some new valve springs that were supplied with the cam kit from VCM Performance. The cylinder head is then installed onto the Gen 3 small block. We are using a set of standard replacement head gaskets and bolts which are available from any parts store. Al is not giving the head bolts any ugger-duggers. The rattle gun is only being used to wind the bolt down into the block because, well, mechanics are lazy. The head bolts are tightened in a certain order and are also done in 3 sequences. The first being a specified torque spec and the second and third passes done by degrees. Al marks each head bolt with a permanent marker and then using a breaker bar can tighten each bolt to the required spec. These head bolts are done 90 degrees on each pass, with the exception of 2 bolts only needing to be done 50 degrees the second time around. The same process is followed on the other cylinder head. Once the heads are tightened, our push rods and rocker gear can be installed. The push rods are matched to the cam profile by VCM, and as the saying goes, many hands make light work. Or get in Al's way, one or the other. One final step is to find top dead centre of the motor, as there is no external mark on the crankshaft. A bracket is bolted to the timing cover and a homemade piston stop is used so we can wind the motor back and forward to then measure the difference and find true top dead centre. Al permanently marks this spot on the crank for future reference.
Very handy for finding TDC on engines that don't have marks. We got the Gen 3 small block ready to go in the car. It's obviously missing a few bits, but we're just going to throw it in like this. Just got these on to protect from schmutz getting in there. These things are great engines. Brilliant design. Everything works. It's metric, which is great, except for they don't use normal metric size bolt heads, but anyway, we'll let that go. The beauty of these things is they're plentiful, they're really well built, they're easy to work on. This is so easy to work on compared to a Japanese engine of any description. And they make power. So I don't know how anyone could hate an LS. If they do, it's because they're a dickhead. The only thing wrong with them is that they're ugly. And that's just because it's a modern engine, and all modern engines are ugly. So the only way you can fix that is make it look like an old engine, which is what we're doing. So we're just going to bang this bad boy on there. Sorted. We're going to rip out the old 283 now and make space for this.
What's the go there?
It's called a carburetor.